from Wise, Witty and Weird. And I'm glad to be with you today, and I apologise to those thousands of people who access our YouTube page to acknowledge that I haven't been here for the last week or so, because actually I've been very busy. And I also want to say that this is summer here in Australia, and at the moment it's about 17, 18 degrees. That's Celsius for those people that are overseas. Those of you that think that everything is in Fahrenheit or imperial, no, some of us work under a different system. And today it is relatively cool, and it's been a summer. But towards the end of this week, it's going to turn out to be about 37 degrees Celsius, which for those of you that aren't interested is probably around 100 degrees. Sorry, I've got a runny nose, which doesn't mean I've got COVID hastily. I just had a sneeze. So I wanted to have a conversation with you all about the culture, and particularly, I guess, around cancel culture, which is the view that some people are not allowed to say certain things because if they do, they will have everybody else up in arms about it. And we have a fair bit of that happening in the US at the moment with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we've had a few instances here with a bloke by the name of Craig Kelly. And I'd be interested to know what it is that you think happens in relation to us preventing people from talking about the things that they need to talk about, and whether or not people have the right to be able to say whatever it is that they need to say. And I guess in the United States, we have an increasing number of people who have been saying things that are in aligned with QAnon. And some of those things that they're saying are simply just bizarre. Should we acknowledge what they say? Should we consider that what they say is relevant? Should we allow it to be aired? Or should we just raise our objections and do what Twitter did, which was to ban Donald Trump? Or what Facebook do, more often than not, by banning people that say things that are either racist or xenophobic or whatever. So who makes those decisions is the other issue. So Twitter has made that decision because some of the things that Trump said was inflammatory, and some of the things that other followers of his have also said were inflammatory, and that they were likely to lead towards, oh my God, what did they lead towards? Oh, sedition. So is this cancelling other people's views? I think this is what cancel culture means. Is it governments who are doing the cancelling? Is it individuals that are doing the cancelling? Or is it organisations that are doing the cancelling? And I guess the reality is that there's a whole plethora of people that do this cancelling of the culture. And is it the culture that they're cancelling, or is it just the ideas of people that have got this bizarre, crazy version of reality? Well, my view is that people should... No, hold on. So there's this argument around free speech. So should people have the right to be able to say whatever it is that they need to say? Well, the answer to that is quite simple. No, they don't. If you say something that defames somebody, if you say something that, for example, Nancy Pelosi needs to be hung, and that there are certain members of the Democratic Party that need to be shot, is it okay to make those sort of statements about people? Is it okay to threaten people with violence? Does that encourage other people that are listening to you, if you're on Facebook or Twitter or in the media, does that allow other people to follow your version of what you believe should happen to others? And I believe that if you're in a position of power and authority, you have to be very careful about what it is that you're going to say about other people, because there are people that will listen to you, that will believe that you, for some reason, as is the case with Trump, believe that is kind of godlike, and that godlike version is always right, that he should never be questioned, that if he tells you to throw yourself off the end of a cliff, you should bloody well do it. and that you should die for him. And, if you've got a demigod such as that sitting up there instructing people to do these terrible things, then in my view, that is just simply wrong. So it's almost like you need to take responsibility for the authority that you've got. So if I, for example, said that person X needed to be executed, then I don't think that would carry all that much weight, because no one really gives a shit about what it is that I say. But if I was to tell somebody in my family who believed in me that this was something that needed to be done in order to save the world, then I would be responsible for that. But just making that blanket statement out there for someone like me won't have any consequence. But it does for other people of authority, particularly politicians. So when we've got people like Craig Kelly here in Australia, who's a politician, spreading crap about medication that can be used so he's spreading this old Trump shit about chlorhexidine or whatever it is, and when he's spreading that crap, and people listen to him because he's a politician. So it really raises the issue, why in the hell do we listen to these politicians in the first place? One really does wonder what they have of value that they can offer that particularly is going to make things better for us if they're spouting this sort of shit. So should they be held accountable? Well, I think they should be. And the question really is, how do we hold them accountable for what it is that they do? We can ban them, or organisations can ban them, or better still, we can push back against them. So what I thought was interesting happening in the US was with Marjorie Taylor Greene, was the amount of airtime these issues got. Now, that raises another issue, like how much time should we give to these people so that they can talk about their garbage? And does that help to inflate their version of events, or does it help to minimise it? Well, in this case, I think it actually helped to raise the attention around the crazy things that she was saying, and it pushed back against those crazy things to the point whereby she turns up in Congress the other day, doesn't apologise, I hasten to add, but does talk about the fact that she was wrong, right? So I don't know if that's an apology. She didn't apologise how she hurt people, and she didn't apologise how she hurt the families of those kids that were killed at those schools. But she did say that, she'd taken in some views and she's now realised that they're wrong. And she's come back since then, pushing back against some of that stuff. The bottom line, though, is that at the end of the day, the Republican Party took a stand in some form against her, and then the Democrats in the Congress chose to have her removed from a couple of the committees she was on. Now, that was a good thing. I think that was kind of democracy in action. And so if we want to cancel culture, we want to cancel the ideas that are harming or damaging other people. We don't want... So it is best, I guess, for us to work with those people that hold those views so that we can find a way to get them to change it. And sometimes people don't even realise, I think, that some of the ideas that they have create problems exponentially for the community, that they can just say whatever it is that they need to say, and whatever they say just permeates amongst the community, and bingo, before we're long, we have this kind of cultural explosion, which I think is extremely damaging, and I think that people need to be aware that this is kind of what happens. So it is important that we understand that, number one, we should never tell people that they can or cannot say things. What we need to do is make sure that, firstly, there are things that you can and can't say, I guess, because there are laws against libelous, defamatory sort of statements. But primarily, it is about us pushing back against crazy ideas. The idea, for example, that Soros and some Jewish people have put up a satellite into space that sends down these rays that creates the bushfires in California. Why in the hell anybody would want to do that in the first place is totally beyond me. But to believe in that sort of stuff is just crazy, and we need to. I think we need, at the end of the day, to be able to confront people that we know who hold those crazy beliefs, and we need to tell them, number one, it's crazy. Number two, what evidence do you have to support it? And what damage, what benefit is there in having that belief? People have some crazy beliefs. So if you're an atheist, for example, you may think that the belief in God it's in itself pretty crazy. But on the whole, believing in God or a deity of any sort doesn't generally damage communities unless you become radicalized around that view and believe that everybody that doesn't believe that view should be exterminated. So one wonders whether some of the beliefs that are being developed and whipped up on the right of politics in particular have the fervent impact that sometimes, I guess, some religious beliefs may have, but generally don't have. 99% of people that have a religious belief believe in peace and the well-being of humankind. So, but there are always these fringe elements. And the question is, to what degree do these fringe elements gain control, have power, and influence others, to eventually, raid Congress, try to take over a government. We've just had a coup in Myanmar recently, and I can't help but think, that coup came about because the military believed that the election was fraudulently held. And where have we heard that before in recent times? And if you've got the military on your side, I guess you can bloody well do anything. Fortunately, in the US, that wasn't the case. But it makes you wonder how frail democracy is and whether or not we can push back enough against that. So the bottom line is, and I'd really be interested in your feedback, is it possible for us to have free speech without prohibiting people from saying what it is that they need to say, but having the space to be able to push back against them? And I know Twitter's a great one for that, but not everybody's on Twitter, I want to add. But and I'm not particularly a great user of Twitter either, but it is an opportunity to push back. Parliamentarians, in particular, I think, should have that right to be able to push back against the culture that is going to be denigrating, harmful and disruptive to those of us who are just the general citizens. We want to live in a society which is calm and reasonable. We have our differences. We need to have our differences because that sorts things out for people. But at the end of the day, we don't want to be in continual conflict with others because they hold a view that is different to ours. It's when those views are extraordinarily ridiculous that we need to then push back. And I think we need to wonder why certain people believe certain beliefs, why people are so disenfranchised that they want to believe some of the stuff that they believe. And, so sometimes it's just not about QAnon. Sometimes it's just about people being xenophobic, people being racist, people holding views that are just unhelpful, hurtful, hateful views. And it doesn't matter whether you're right or left or who you are. If you're holding those views about somebody else, then someone needs to push back against you, right? And that's not about discrediting. Well, it's not about discrediting them as a person. It's about discrediting the views. And that's something that we need to focus more on. I think we need to be able to push back on people and say, that view is not what I hold. I hold a completely different way of viewing the world. And you may choose to disagree with me, but I need to have the space also to be able to say what it is that I believe. And often what I find is that the people are presenting these really bizarre notions around their interpretation of the world. And there are very few people that are pushing back against those views. You know, we're there, so that all the space is taken with the view that somebody has. And no one's questioning, why it is that they have those particular views. And it's quite interesting at the moment. There have been quite a number of interviews that CNN have done with people who have had QAnon type views and have come to realise that those views at the end of the day were founded on zilch. And so they've been able to change their mind, and then they've felt guilty about the number of people that they've endeavoured to influence also with those same views. And it's almost like the sense of rationalism has gone out the window, that no longer do we ever think about whether the facts, how the facts have been developed around some of these bizarre theories that people come up with. It's almost like facts don't seem to matter. I mean, once Trump said that, or Kellyanne Conway said that there's alternate facts. Well, that was it. And once the media becomes the enemy of the people, then no one's going to believe mainstream media. And so when we discredit the sources that we rely on in order to provide us with information, scientists, Trump decided scientists weren't the way to go in terms of defining what was happening with COVID-19. And so we decided not to believe them anymore because their information was not presented, was not even permitted for us to be heard. So when we're talking about cancelling culture and we're thinking about, the information that the community society needs, and it's not made available, well, for God's sake, is that cancelling culture? These are the very people that tell us that cancel culture is a bad thing, and yet, in a sense, it's the right wing, the right of politics that are doing the very thing that they're saying that we should not be doing. So we need to consider exactly where we sit in this world, and we need to work out ways by which we can do things differently and do things in a respectful and safe way. So thanks for being with me, and we'll have more wise, witty and weird over the next few days. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Look after yourselves. Be safe. And if you can, get a shot in the arm.